Hey, you've made it to the podcast Recovery Captured, hosted by me, Shannon Louise, a certified recovery coach and self-verified addict. Join me on my journey through my recovery from mind-altering substances, eating disorders, depression, and much, much more. During this podcast, you'll hear my personal experience, thoughts, and opinions, as well as my guests' stories through their own recovery. I hope that you're able to take something away from this podcast and use it as a tool to help you see that your story is picture perfect. Perfect. So, Mandy, welcome to Recovery Captured. Why don't you give us the fun facts? What are you in recovery for? What is your recovery date? And give us a fun fact about you.
Okay. Well, nice to meet you, and thank you for having me on. Okay. So I am sober from, I'm in recovery from opiates. I always say more. I didn't discriminate, but opiates, crack, and pretty much everything, really everything. And I have been sober since August 6th of 2012, so 9.5 years. And what was the last question?
Fun fact.
Oh, fun fact. How did I forget that one? Okay, fun fact. that stumps me. Nobody really makes me speechless. I like that. That is a fun one. I wanted to be a singer. I was actually going to school and went to school on a full ride to be a singer. That was my lifelong dream, and auditioned for like American Idol and opened for John Anderson. And yeah.
That's awesome. Maybe you can share some of your music with us.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Sing much. It's funny because I don't really sing much after I got sober. I really don't. And I don't know what that fear is, but in 9.5 years, I have not seemed to conquer that fear yet. So I don't know. Maybe it's that guilt. Mm-hmm.
Why do you say the guilt?
Because, I didn't expect myself to be an addict, and I didn't expect to go that route. Like, ever since I could talk, that's all I wanted to do was just sing, And so, I mean, when I was in college, that's what I went to school for. And I was going to Nashville. I was going to go there, and I had big plans.
And
so when that didn't.
I was going to say, did your addiction stop you from moving forward?
100%. Yeah.
I could see where that guilt comes from. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's probably why I haven't sang. Maybe in the shower or like the kitchen.
All day.
Yeah.
In the car. That's the best part.
Oh yeah, that's a live concert. Maybe I shouldn't say I don't sing, because
everyone gets a view when they drive by.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Mandy, we'll dive into it. Let us know what it was like, in your active addiction, in your active years of singing, and then what happened, what made you stop singing, and what got you to where you are today. Okay.
All right. So I grew up actually in a household where I legit have, the ACEs quiz. I literally score a 0. I grew up in a very stable, loving, with no alcohol. I never witnessed alcohol, no drugs. family. I had a really good childhood. I wanted to be a singer. I was part of youth groups and, church, and we went to church a lot, and, and I enjoyed it. And, I ended up, getting a scholarship to, our local community college, and we traveled throughout Michigan with the singing group. And that's what I wanted to do. I was set to go to Nashville. That's what I wanted to do. And in walked a boy one day, and he was an alumni from a couple of years back, in the same singing group. And I was saving myself for marriage. Like, that's how involved in the church I was. Like, I was very set in my faith, and saving myself for marriage. And I ended up dating him for about 2 years, and then we got engaged. And the day I got engaged, I had sex for the first time and got pregnant. And I actually shared this just once, and I'm just now starting to talk about it. And so it definitely is not something that I enjoy putting out there, because I already know. But I ended up having an abortion. And that was not a choice that I really had made for myself, even though I did. I was very much in love with my very first love, who did not want the child. I made that very clear. And the thought of, giving up my dream, I was very selfish, I mean, as most addicts are. I was very selfish. And the thought of giving up that dream or even breaking the news to my parents was just, I couldn't even wrap my head around it. And, he suggested it, I did it. And the moment I did it, I've never felt such self-hatred, and just that loathing. I hated that girl in the mirror for years. I mean, just years. And he ended up cheating on me, as most douches do. And so I started, I dropped out of college and I started bartending. And when you start bartending, and you start making a lot of money, there's also a casino nearby. You start gambling. There's things that help you stay awake, and there's there's things that help you go all night and all days. So I started with Coke, and I was drinking on top of that. Became VIP out at that little teeny tiny casino. And then I had a one night stand, got pregnant again, and I decided that I would clean my act up. At least, I had plans to stay that way. And so I ended up having my son, who is 17 now. But I had him, and that was just so mixed, because I love kids, but I never wanted any of my own. And I truly believe that it stems from, that trauma, that I had gone through, and never addressed ever. So, I immediately after he was born, I started using again. And while I was pregnant, I will add this, while I was pregnant, I did clean my act up. I got another job as a Department of Transportation drug and alcohol collector.
While you're
right?
using?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, that was, and I find some people think it's like I have very dark humor, you know, and if I don't find some of the things that I did like funny, like, you know, on one of my reels, I had posted this thing about I stole a watermelon. One of my criminal charges is it's for retail fraud, one of them, okay, but it's for legit stealing a watermelon. And I mean, come on. If I don't find humor in that, like that's on my record for life, you know, like
Right.
what? I mean, and it's funny, come on.
Right, right, right.
Like, there's no reason for it. But yeah, I did. I worked as a drug and alcohol collector for the Department of Transportation, and would go home on my lunch break, get high, and I would come back and I would drug test them. And people that had it, you know, like people that were trying to get their licenses back. Goodness sakes. You know, just yeah, it was just a crazy time in my life. And so I was introduced to this girl while I was bartending, and she and I became like a Bonnie and Clyde kind of deal, you know, like she was or Thelma and Louise, you know, I don't know. We were partners in crime and in literal sense, you know. And so I started dealing, and that was a whole new ball game, you know, and I was making good money. So, but it was dangerous and that was exciting. You know, it was just, and the thing is that I started with alcohol, right? And like, I started with, like pot and alcohol. And then I rolled into, you know, crack, you know, you know, started with Coke and then, you know, crack. And then you always chase that high, you never get it. So you just keep leveling up and leveling up, you know? I mean, I was taking at the very end, I was taking, you know, at least 60 Norco a day. You know, that's what I needed to survive, like before withdrawal set in, you know? So, I mean, that's the level up on top of other stuff, you know? And so, but I ended up in 2008. You know, I was a single mom, but in 2008, I got married. I met to a corrections officer at the prison. I don't even know. Okay, I'm seeing the pattern. I'm hearing it. Okay, yeah. Like it's like, and I've told my story several times, but I think I'm hearing it for the first time again. Like there's a serious pattern. So you know, I ended up marrying him. I was married for 4 years, and that was a very rocky, you know, relationship, a very rocky marriage. You know, I will not say that he was the nicest to me, but I will also say that, you know, I was a full blown addict, and I spent every dime he had. You know, I gambled his truck away. I gambled his camper. I gambled, you know, his coin collection. You know, so it's not easy being in a relationship, let alone married to somebody like that, you know. And I was trying to juggle, you know, being a mom, and, you know, so my coping skill, let's use more. And so, so fast forward to, you know, 2012, I put my son to bed, August 4th, and, and I started to dye my hair. And while I was dyeing my hair, I took my handful of, you know, my medicines to come down. And that was nothing new. That night, though, I added a fentanyl patch. And my 7-year-old then, so 10 years ago almost, he found me in the bathtub, and he shut the water off before I drowned. So, so Mason actually saved my life that night, you know, and I was in and out of consciousness, you know, there wasn't like Narcan. Nobody knew anything like that, you know, I mean, if they did, they didn't share it, but I was in and out of consciousness, and I fractured my femur on the way down when I must have been like rinsing it out. I don't even know what color I went. I couldn't even tell you. I didn't know what I was doing. But you know what? One thing I do remember is I remember that when I took the handful of pills, it was not my intent. I literally, I had no idea, it was nightly. So it was nothing new except for that patch. And I didn't think anything of it. But I remember thinking, that my son would be better off with my parents, he would be more loved. And it was then that I had just accepted death, and I remember in and out of that consciousness and seeing his face, just like looking down, and he asked, "What do I do?" He's 7. And he would say, "What do I do?" And, his sperm donor's not involved,
Right.
and so he's not listed on anything. And I knew that, like, I had my wits about me at least to know that he'd be placed in the care of CPS. And I told him, "Don't call the police." He ended up calling my in-laws. I don't know which I would have preferred better, but no, for real. My in-laws contacted my parents. My parents came and took him. And then the very next day, my dad had called my ex, and said, "Bring her out here and bring everything that she's on." And I remember I was just telling the story the other day. I had a crock pot of barbecue chicken, and this house was white. All of it was white, and it was beautiful. And and the barbecue chicken went flying that day. I took tongs and I whipped it everywhere I could at him, because he was taking my stuff, he was gathering it all up. And I kept saying, "I'm going to be sick," and I mean, if you've ever tried to take drugs away from somebody, that's actively using, we already know, right?
Not gonna happen.
Exactly. Not without a fight, that's for sure. And so he put it all in a brown paper bag, took me out to my parents. I got right in the vehicle, and my dad took me to a hospital that was about 40 minutes away from my hometown.
Mhm.
And the reason that he was taking me there was because I had been posting on Facebook about, like, just, I lost 70 pounds overnight. Like, seriously. Okay. And you could see, I mean, there's pictures that I've posted, that you can, like, see there's no soul, like it's just an empty shell,
Mhm.
of like a picture. And so there's this couple, and he is in recovery from heroin, and he's a pastor now. And he had been following me, and he reached out to my parents. And so he woke up on the streets of California one day, and he was actively using, and he was going to take his life. And he heard the voice of God tell him, "I have bigger plans for you." And he's been sober ever since. And so
Mhm.
he had been following my story, reached out to my parents. And then where they live was that 40 minutes away. So that's where my dad took me. It took us a long time to get there because I was sick. I was really mad because he would not give me what was in that brown paper bag. And I was, like, literally trying to rationalize, like, "You don't understand how sick I'm going to be." And he just kept pulling over. He just kept pulling over. I was so mad. Oh man, I was so mad. And when we got there, we met the couple, and this male nurse took us back, and my dad hadn't handed him the bag, and he kept, like, putting up the bottles. And after every bottle, I'd say, "That's not mine. That is not mine. I don't know whose that is." And finally, I looked over at my dad, and for the first time in, 30 years, I I watched him sob. And I looked at the nurse and I said, I think I have a problem. And he said, well, honey, you just took your first step into your new life. And I was like, okay. And so, he gave me a shot of morphine, and because I was full blown withdrawals at that point and I was sick. And explained to my dad why he did so, and then he put me in a room, and he set up detox for me. And so my dad took me to the detox, and I went there for 6 god awful days, where I thought I was dying. It pisses me off so bad when people say it's flu-like symptoms, because people that say that have never been through DTs, right? So I went there, then I went to rehab it was a 14-day program at the time. My first day there, I found out that I called home, and I found out that I was wanted, and I had 8 felony warrants out for my arrest. So I called the undersheriff and said, I'm in treatment. What do you want me to do? And he said, finish your program, turn yourself in after. So I did. I spent that entire time, which, it was really hard to focus, like it was really hard. I questioned why I was there, but then again, I knew why I was there, like I wasn't court ordered, I wasn't any of that. Like I was there because, in fact, the counselor asked while I was there, what is it that you want? And I said, I want to be a productive member of society and I want to be a good mom. That was it. Everything else I knew would fall into place because I was listening to the people. I knew what I had looming over my head. I didn't even know half of the charges of what I had done. I didn't know what I was truly wanted for, but I knew what I was wanted for some, so I finished the program and I turned myself in, bonded myself out. And I should also add that while I was there in rehab, my husband at the time asked for divorce over the phone. So obviously I said yes. That was toxic anyways. Like I wasn't going back. And so, I got out, got divorced, then I went to jail. And then in the jail cell is where, I tell all of the people that I work with that there's a click that will happen. There's something, it's like a jigsaw puzzle, like something will fall into place and it's the click, and I was in a jail cell and one of the guys, I had to.
Oh no.
Can you hear me?
I can now.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm not disturbed. Okay. So where was I at? Oh, in the jail cell. I'm sorry. In the jail cell, one of the COs, I had done a drug screen and he recognized, me right away. And we were cleaning the cell one night and he said, why do people go to rehab before they come here? And I said, why do people come here before they go to rehab? There was my click. And that was when I knew that I was doing this. I was going to be sober. And it became so clear to me because during my stay, there was girls setting up, deals, like when they got out, like they had stuff waiting for them, make sure you have this when you pick me up. Don't forget, and all I wanted to do was just get home, and at that point I didn't have one, I didn't know what I was going to do. So I went and I stayed with my parents afterwards for 2 years. I was on probation, strict probation. I will say that man never left me alone ever, ever. And, I worked several jobs. I started, to pay people back. I stole from a few different stores that were locally owned, that I had written in rehab, down that I wanted to make amends to them. Um, and I just stayed sober. I went to meetings. I was court ordered to meetings, AA or NA, and I went to 5 a week. I was court ordered to 3 a week, uh, and I went to 5 a week. If I could, I dove in as far as I possibly could, because there was no dipping my toes at that point. I had already done rock bottom. I already hit it. It was done. you know. Um, and I also knew that if I went back out, that I wouldn't come back out at all. So I I was court ordered, and I was 10 months clean when a boy walked into an AA meeting. And I became the 13th stepper that was like, oh my God, I'm going to marry that man. I just love him. He's so cute.
Mm-hmm.
So 8 years later, 8 years later now, I divorced him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm now in recovery from him and a narcissistic, domestic abusive relationship, marriage. And, I don't, it'll be in the paper, so I don't really give a shit. So he's sitting right now for aggravated stalking, and, has for the past 14 months threatened my life, has put me in therapy again, like extensive. I was always in therapy, but like extensive therapy, and forced me to, which is actually a good thing, but to get healthy. Because when I signed up for that gym, I did say, they said, what is your goal? And I said, I want to be able to kick my ex-husband's ass if I need to. So, I go through like the stages of, sadness and that trauma bond and feeling bad. He was in recovery, obviously, as well, but went back out so many times. So many, at least once a year, if not several. And it was very difficult to dump vodka bottles down the drain and to find meth in my garage, and to find crack pipes that were hidden in fences, and do you know how freeing it is to say this? Because I haven't been sharing this stuff because he's wanted to go through a bunch of stuff, and now that it's almost over, I want to share about it, not because I want to slander this person, but let's be honest, if they don't like it, they shouldn't have done it. That's what I'll say on that. Okay. But also, do you know how many women are out there like me that have not walked away for fear of that retaliation, for fear of what they're going to say, and so I refuse. By our silence, we allow others to define us, and silence kills. So I recover loudly. I am going to heal just as loud.
I
So
love it.
I'm,
I love
mhm,
that. And you're able to connect with other people, right? There might be women out there that have no idea that, like, it's a normal life for them. When you're in an abuse, especially like that mental abuse that comes with it, you think that you're crazy, that you're the one that's causing it, that like it's normal, right? And it's not normal. And other people do, have to deal with that, and people do recover. And I love that
yes,
you're mentioning that you're going to recover and heal loudly, because we all need to hear it and it needs to be known. And the more stuff like this is known, the more help there is going to be, right? More support.
yeah,
Absolutely. I
yeah.
love that. And good for you. Good.
Thank you. The other thing that I have done, and it kind of like took off like wildfire with my, with my girlfriends and such. And it was a joke, but if somebody actually asked me to do a podcast on it. And so it was so funny because I mean, I've been calling it healing, not hoeing, not, and again, nothing against you, do you, boo. That's my disclaimer. Okay. You do you, boo, whatever works. Okay.
Right.
But for me, those patterns, I see a red flag and I'm like, oh, you've been to prison and you have tattoos. I'm sorry. My clothes literally just fell off. Like, I have no idea what happened, so
Yes.
I charge right towards them.
Uh-huh.
And every single time, I'm left in, this place where I have zero identity and I jump into the sack with somebody, and then that turns into like, I think I might like him. And then, oh, I love him. So I started this thing. I'm like, I'm healing. I'm not hoeing. And it doesn't mean anything, like bad. That's a boundary that I'm setting for myself, that I want to break the pattern. Like I did with my addiction with, drugs and alcohol. I want to break the pattern. I have a son that I'm raising. I don't want him to think that that is a normal way to treat a woman, and thank goodness he he is nothing. He's just a good person, he's nothing like that. So, but I just feel like that's my own boundary that I need to stick with, and I called it the act of, just breaking the pattern, breaking that cycle, and it I'm not even hoeing around for friendships, like, I mean, I'm not, maybe I am a little bit closed off. And there are days when I'm resentful, and I'm very bitter. The Walmart greeter, I'm not even going to lie. The Walmart greeter, I think he has a personal vendetta against me right now. I do. And I keep trying to plead my case with my friends, but they just think that I'm just crazy about it. But he tells me to enjoy your shopping experience when I have firmly told him explicit words like, don't talk to me, and which I know he's just doing his job, right? But I have just found myself in those positions, where I'm swearing at the Walmart greeter and like literally hate him now because, he's telling me to enjoy who the F is this dude telling me to enjoy my shopping experience,
Don't tell
So,
me how to live my life.
right? Nobody ever tell me what to do again, yeah.
You ain't my boss.
But, trying to break those patterns of all of it has been so, it's been so hard, and I have been crumpled on the kitchen floor, and I have been taking an air fryer that he got me one year that I never wanted, because first of all, it wasn't a real air fryer. It was a stupid convection oven or whatever that he claimed it was an air fryer. And I smashed it to pieces. I found joy in that because I hated that thing. And it was that reminder, and then I go from that to, my therapist says it's normal. So, I go through like the process of healing, and when you're healing from a narcissist, that is so different, and something that you just don't even expect, because it's so many forms of abuse, financial, emotional, mental, physical, all of it, and it puts you in a place where, like, it's almost like somebody took me out of a fishbowl that I was super comfortable in for 8 years, dropped me in a new one, and was like, now flurry, just flourish, go ahead, swim,
Right.
and
I love how you mentioned that your healing from this isn't linear, right? So we have our anger, our frustration, our resentment, our loss, our sadness. There's all different kinds of emotions that we hit, and that happens with a lot of things we're healing from. And I think it's great to shine light on that, because sometimes like mourning something can just be the thought of, I just have to cry. Like, this is what I have to do. No, if you need to fucking smash oven, like that's what we need to do. right? If you need to,
Yep.
like get mad at the Walmart guy for a hot minute, then, like, let's say, you know, but we all have to go through our healing process at different stages, right? It's not just that straight line. It
Yeah.
comes and flows, and then it might not even be there for, say, like a week or whatever. That
Yep.
feeling or those thoughts about them, but best believe 2 weeks later you're feeling
Yep.
those emotions again, like mourning a loss, because I feel like it is considered as like a loss. That's 8 years of your marriage, 8 years of your life, 8 years of your sanity, 8 years, there's a lot that has been lost. And so it's a huge mourning process. And that's going to look differently every single day and differently for everyone, right?
Yep. And when you're with somebody, for that amount of time too, it doesn't even matter. They're so good at getting you trauma bonded to them. I mean, so nothing else, So for 8 years, I isolated, friends were not accepted, so it was just easier not to be around them because it was just a fight.
Right.
So but that trauma bond, that is something that I think I have struggled with the most, because I fluctuate between like pure grief, like severe grief, because truly the person that I knew, I don't know that person. Like they mirror you. So that's why you like them so much, is because they're exactly like you.
Isn't that
They
funny? Because we
Yeah.
used to hate ourselves. We used to
Mhm.
hate the person we were. Now we
Yeah.
fell for someone that is a narcissist and they're mirroring
Yeah.
us. It's like, oh wait, shit,
Yeah. And then, you also have, the ones that, like, so if you are the main supply, best believe that the old supply will probably try to warn you, which she did. And I was like, "Oh, honey, you don't even know. I'm gonna fix him, okay? Like, it
Oh,
hasn't worked with everybody else, but I'm gonna be the one that's gonna fix him, finally."
the fix.
And every time, you swoop in, you get addicted. I actually read that the trauma bond becomes so great with them that you get addicted to the highs, and the lows, because when there's a low, there's always going to be a high. And that high is like equal to, you get addicted to them like you would, heroin. I mean, any substance, so
Now,
you're in recovery.
right, right, exactly. Now, for individuals that haven't experienced something like that or haven't heard the term, what is trauma bond to you?
So trauma bond to me is a lot like Stockholm syndrome. So you actually protect your abuser. You protect them. You make up excuses. You feel bad. So like they'll do something wrong and then convince you that you are crazy. You did not, like, you could literally see that the sun is shining and say, "Look, at the sun is shining," and they will argue it to the point where you will question, is it actually like shining? Am I actually like really seeing that? Huh, maybe you're right. You become so like attached to them. They're all that because that's all that they want you to know.
Mhm.
Um, and so that bond to me is, I protected him through thick and thin. I protected, each time, he broke my nose, each time I got stitches, I protected him. I was bonded to him because I was not necessarily afraid of the retaliation part of it, but because I would lose him. That
Mm.
sounds so messed up, but I was so worried that I would lose him. And I'd get so jealous too over other girls that would look at him, and he would purposely even say, like, "Did you see that girl checking me out?" That would just light my fire, because the thought of losing them is that bond. I
Mm.
mean, and they create it.
Mhm.
They create it.
Mhm. And you're right, it sounds so crazy. Sounds so crazy listening to you explain that and say that and know that you were in it for 8 years, but it's just like addiction. You don't understand until you're in it. And when you're in it, it's your love, just like drugs were. Drugs were the love of my life. My ex who was emotionally abusive. He was the love of my life.
Yeah.
That gaslighting, it's fucking serious.
Yeah.
It's so sad. And when I see it now, like it rarely ever happens to me now because I don't associate myself with certain people, but like when I see someone else doing it or like on TV or movies, my skin literally crawls and I am so disgusted. And it's like, thank God I'm not in that. And thank God I'm not that type of person to do that to someone else because it's excruciating, so painful.
It is. I always say it's like evil in human form. It really is. Like you can't. So, and they always seek out empaths, so people that have hearts, and actually like, and so you can't, an empath can't wrap our heads around the fact that there are people like that. We see it on movies and we see it on TV, but that's on a screen. You can't wrap your head around that this person turned out to be, because there was so many things I stuffed and I ignored and I forgot about until now you're in the aftermath. And now in the aftermath, you deal with, not only did you deal with it for that long, but now it's like 10 times worse, and, I've been in the process of ripping the mask off. I'm exposing him. I have exposed him, and he doesn't like that, I'm sure. I don't know because I have no contact, and that's super important too. There is a journal that I got, and it's for narcissistic abuse survivors, and it's how to survive. There are hoovering notes. I'll give you the name of the author, but in this journal, there's a no contact tracer, and they say, there's a pattern. If you can break that pattern, and that's why they say no contact is super important, but not a lot of people can do that. I was reading through it, and on mine, I had like 24 hours. I did it. But do you know how hard that was? Like, because they don't give up. The thought of them losing us is also equally as scary because it's almost like a vampire. They feed off of your blood, so you are the supply. It's so messed up. You aren't their wife, you're a supply. I'm sounds so callous, but it's the truth. It's just it's something, just something.
It really is. And unfortunately, you don't see it when you're in it. You don't see it for what it is. But if you're that fly on the wall, it's very easy to see.
Oh yeah. Everybody told me, my family, everyone, my friends. I don't know if there was any, the ones that did, care for him. I can tell you I'm not friends with now. I don't have any contact and no use for them. So.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I know. Every time I broke up with my ex, I would always go back. It was like a high school relationship, that petty, like, oh, you hurt me, I'm breaking up with you. And then you get back together and it's like that on and off relationship. As an adult, I had that, because I could see little glimpse of what he was doing and I would accept it for that moment. And then I would go back because everything's better, right? He changed. I see it. He changed, right? And it's like, what the fuck? What a great mask that he can put on. What a good act to make everyone fooled,
Yeah.
And it
they're chameleons.
Yeah. Yeah. And it changes when they're, at least with my ex, I also met him in the rooms and I was like 3 months sober and he had a few extra months and I was fully committed, right? I was committed to my recovery and I was totally committed to him. But when he relapsed, I was gung-ho for my recovery. So that's like our first breakup, right? And it's like his abuse became stronger and more aggressive with every relapse.
Yep.
He had, but some of the times, like
Oh
we
my
didn't live
God.
together. He didn't, I didn't see it all the time, so he was able to hide it in a way that I was convinced, like, okay, maybe it's nothing. But looking back on it, it's like, oh, okay, every time that he acted in that way, it is because he was
Yeah.
intoxicated.
My God, you just like totally shined a light. Like, did you see the light bulb go off?
I did. I was like, is someone in there?
I was like, whoa, mind blown right now. Like, no, you're so right. And I didn't even put, there's so much that I'm still learning about what I went through. Like, it's so, so you describing it like that, like you are right.
What was the light bulb for you? What just happened?
When you said, each relapse, the abuse, became, and it was that level up,
Mhm.
it was that level up. Um, and the beast was so big. The beast became so big. Um, that was that light bulb when you said that just like, you're right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Huh. Well,
The
there's some
fascinating,
self-reflection.
right? There goes to the healing. It's fascinating though, because I know, like, when he wasn't using, he was extremely kind-hearted.
Hmm.
Like I know he has a good heart, but there's just something that comes out. Maybe it's with other significant others, but with me, like that mental abuse was there. When he was intoxicated, that mental abuse was there, but when he was not intoxicated, he had such a good heart. And that's
Hmm.
also what became very confusing to me. Adding it
Yeah.
to the mix, like, I know this gaslighting is happening. I know I'm not crazy, but I am, because this fantastic human being that has such a kind heart is telling me otherwise, right? So, like, the first 3 months of our relationship is like that high that I was chasing, just like you described. That
Hmm.
first 3 months is that thought I kept chasing, like, everything's going to get back to this, right? I can change him, like, I know it's there. So, with him having that kind heart in that 3 months, like, that's what also kept me going back and kept me there, because I knew it was possible to get to that point, or I at least
Yeah.
believed that, which clearly isn't the case because it never went back, right? But
Yeah.
I had the thought that I could get it back to that point if I micromanaged his recovery. Best fucking believe
Oh,
I would beat the shit out of someone if they tried micromanaging my recovery. But here I am managing his. Like, oh, did you talk to your sponsor? Did you go to a meeting? I see you're slacking in blah 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 blah. And it's like,
yep.
not helping the situation.
No, I think that I did the exact same, literally the exact same thing, word for word, literally. Um, and oh man, yeah, I did do that too. And I remember, like just nothing worked, and it was so frustrating because it was like, why? You have everything here. Why? There just was no, there just has never been any closure from it.
Mhm,
There's never been any answers.
mhm,
And you bring up like the gaslighting, that is so real. That love bombing is so real, and they learn you. They learn you so well that now my favorite saying in the world has been, you have forced me to research and study up on narcissistic personality disorder. Now enjoy my educated ass.
mhm,
Because now I'm forced to be 3 steps ahead of the game, you
mhm,
know? And like I said, it's been 14 months and there's shit still going on, still. And getting out of that has been, um, draining, and you don't know who you can trust, and the ones that you do trust you feel so bad for, because you're literally unloading. I
Mhm.
mean, you're trauma dumping all over them. My best friend hates that term, by the way, but but you are, you're literally unloading all of your trauma and everything that you're feeling. And I know that if my son were to call me on the other end of the phone and heard me like I have been, I can't even imagine what that is like, because they've seen it and now they're seeing it. And so it really is, you learn very quick who your support system is.
Mhm.
You learn very quick who you trust, and your circle goes like it did in recovery, like, or with your addiction, with substances. You immediately tighten up that circle and siphon out every bad little leaf that you can. Anything that's going to pop your little recovery bubble, you can't do it. And then it becomes, like in my case, it's been for safety,
Mhm.
so I've had to tighten it up so strong for safety.
Mhm.
And, you know, that's the reality, you
Right.
know. The joy that I have found, though, is that through everything, I have been able to play the tape all the way through, and I have not picked up. And so I will, God willing, but I will be celebrating 10 years on August 6th of this year, because I refuse to go back down that road again.
Mhm.
Refuse, you
Mhm.
know. So it is also hard to not, say, well, that person's a narcissist. We're not going to talk to them. They're narcissists. So, I
Right.
mean, really establishing and tightening that up allows you to not only heal, but then to recognize what's a healthy friendship, what's a healthy relationship, and what's not. So
Mhm.
it's such a learning process that I
It
don't wish upon anyone.
Right, it is, and it's at least for me to tighten up that circle of mine took a very long time. It wasn't overnight, like, "Okay, I see what you're doing," like, over it, you know? There was these little times where he would sneak back in some way with a text
Hmm.
or with a call or like, "Hey, I need you," and I would open back up.
Yep.
I'd tell my friends like, "Oh, hey, we're talking again," or whatever, so to get to that point took a long time, took years,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
I would get into another relationship and I would trauma dump and I would reflect
Yep.
everything. More so, I would project my past onto this, so much so that I had to leave that relationship
Yep.
to go back to him, right? I didn't think it was bad because he wasn't physically abusive. So how bad
Yep.
could it be, right?
Hmm.
So that healing that I started doing by closing up my circle and getting that structure and that foundation would crumble with every little text or every little sight from him. And I would go back, right? Because it's not that bad. And then
Yep.
just for some reason, at some point, God knows why, my circle was just bonded together and I was healing. I was done. Just like it was with my recovery. Like I never went to
Hmm.
rehab or detox. It's just one day it all fucking clicked and I was sober. And it
Yep.
stayed that way, right? There was just one day when I was done with my ex and I was on my path to recovery, trying to learn how to navigate through the world after being in such a hard place, right? Now I have to, learn how to trust other people, put that
Yeah.
faith in other people, you know?
That's a super hard thing to do, because I don't even know if I trust myself at times. I don't even know what emotion is going to come out. Literally, I'm like, half the minute I'm like crying, and then like I'll wait. because 5 minutes later I'll be fine, and then one week I'll have like the worst week, and then it'll be fine again. I just never know what I'm going to be feeling. And I often describe it as like, an old clothesline, the old clothespins, and they would just hang there when they're not secured with something. They like flip around and they fly everywhere, and but they're always on the line. I've been like that, I've been in that whirly twirly, and like, people going by and just flicking it, and just not knowing like which end I'm going to be at. And it has just been such a exhausting, but at the end I know there has to be an end, just like there was for my substances. There has to be, and if I keep putting one step in front of the other, I have a plaque in here that says, just take it one giant earth shattering crisis at a time. And that's what it's been, and for me, if I stay sober, then I can take those crises and I can handle them, even though I might not do so gracefully. I don't know who does. And if you do know, please hit me up. For real. If I can stay sober through those, then everything will be fine, because nothing gets better when I use, ever. So that's not an option. It's not an option for me. I mean, it is, but it can't be.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So what is it like now? Now that you're almost 10 years sober, you're over a year out of the relationship, like what is life now?
So for the past 5 years, have worked as a recovery coach.
Yep.
And my role, like I tell everybody, is, I don't know how to do a lot in life, but I do know how to stay sober. And I just do life with people. And that has been one of the most rewarding, yet saddening, yet astonishing, and hardest, but greatest jobs I have ever. I mean, it's my career, and it is one of the greatest jobs that I have ever had the blessing of doing. And that's true. I get to witness people getting sober. I get to witness that, and it might not happen for a lot, but there's a lot that do. And when that happens, it's that click. When you get to witness that click, it just keeps you going. I mean, that's what recovery is. That's what it looks like, and when you get to witness that, that's just a pure blessing all in itself, Yeah. So life is, my son and I are doing, good. I mean, obviously we're, in therapy, but, our bond has always been pretty strong. It has definitely strengthened. I have strengthened the bond, with my parents, and the few friends, that I chose, and life is still chaotic, but it's still here, and it's not going anywhere. Life on life's terms sucks ass. I mean, it does. Sometimes it just sucks royal ass, and it's not all fun and games. Recovery is not always beautiful and unicorns and rainbows. Sometimes it's literally going to bed that night, and the only accomplishment that you have done is stay sober. But that is the biggest accomplishment, and so, life these days for me have been in that healing, and I go to the gym. That's been my outlet. One of the things that he used to do is he used to call me Fat Mandy. And so I turned that into fuel, like I do joke about it, because let's be honest, I was, but there was there was a lot of unhealthy things in my life, and now there is not. And, and that's been a great outlet. I have found that I watched a sunset for the first time. I live on Lake Michigan and literally have never watched a sunset my whole entire life from start to finish. And I did this past summer. I went hiking. I found different places that were like serene for me, in nature, which I never did. Like I'm not a nature person. I am like, no, thank you with the bugs. I'm good. But I found solitude, and I would go up there and I found a place where I could scream at the top of a hill, where it echoed throughout a lake. That's the bad spot for me. That's my let loose, and I just have found different things that I need to continue to do. I'm purging, and I got rid of anything that reminded me of him in the house. I just started doing things that I never did before. A woman that I started talking about, I made a TikTok reel out of the blue. I was not talking about the narcissistic stuff. And out of the blue, I made just this TikTok and hesitated to even post it, and forgot all about it because, whatever. And I had a lady that reached out to me and she said, I don't ever do this and you don't know me. And then she gave me her story and it was like everything aligned. And she said 3 words at the bottom of the message. And it was, I believe you. And that is what I needed to springboard. I started following people that I could. I started listening to podcasts by these self-aware narcissists, that are now I showing people, like what it looks like what they used to do. They do little skits and stuff. And I started diving into that like I did my recovery from alcohol and drugs. And with that, I have created for myself, like I've become a part of a community. And I hold that very near and dear to my heart because these people have been there. And those 3 words mean everything. If it wasn't for her saying those, I would have been in that same dark place thinking that I was imagining everything that was going on. So that I believe you, that changed everything. So now recovery looks like I have been ripping that mask off, and slowly but surely I have been exposing, not to slander. Also, disclaimer, if you don't like it, you shouldn't have done it. But still, but showing others that there is a way out. And not only that, but you can stay sober through it. There are people out there. You have a community. And I have said this, and in everything that every person that I possibly could talk to, I just say, just come home. You have a whole community waiting for you. No matter what recovery you're in, just go home, come home, and it's just powerful, all of us together, we are powerful. We don't do this together, or we don't do this alone. We do this together. And the motto of my page has always been, we don't do this alone because we do it together. And the joy is we don't have to do it alone, So
I like the saying, the opposite of addiction is connection.
Yeah.
100%.
I 100% agree. Absolutely.
So when I wrap up my podcast, I like to ask some rapid fire questions. And I feel like our first question kind of aligns with, the way your life is going, like, what are you happy for?
Okay. I am happy for, I always say this, a heartbeat. That's first and foremost.
Okay, that's sweet.
Well, I say that because for a brief moment I didn't have one, and for a brief moment I didn't care. And I'm happy that I care. I'm
Oh,
happy for the heartbeat. I'm grateful for it. Um, and I'm super happy that I have such a great relationship with my son. I have the opportunity to educate him, on, you don't have to go down this path that I went down.
mhm.
He witnessed a lot. He was very much a part of my addiction, and I make so damn sure that he is so much a part of my recovery. So I am happy for him.
Does he support you in your recovery?
1000%. That when the kids, I don't know if you guys do that there, but the kids celebrate like 100 days, of school, and they
Yep.
do like a big, okay. So, I remember him bouncing out of bed and asking, is it 100 days yet? Is it 100 days yet? He was so happy for my 100th day of sobriety, and I was waiting for 30, 60, 90, he was like just 100, for him, that was like big. And it was like, once I hit that, I think he then started to trust me,
Mhm.
like he's always, Mason has always, he's lied for me. He has protected me. And so I do that now.
Mhm.
Now he's a kid, I made sure that he's a kid
Mhm.
and he doesn't have to worry about me.
Right. Oh, he's so fortunate to have you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I Yeah. I love him so much. Like, seriously, he's just a cool kid, he's cool to hang out with. He's fun.
Oh,
Um, yeah.
that's
He's a
fair.
good kid.
Oh, I love that. All right. So who's your biggest influence?
Oh boy. My biggest influence. I take a piece, I think, of everywhere, from my past. I take that back. From the past 9.5 years, I've taken something from everybody, I think, so I have several, my mom, for being a mom, and showing me that role model, and what that looks like, teaching me consistency. My dad, for, both of them, for that, unconditional love. They could have given up on me, and they didn't. They didn't wash their hands. You know, they didn't walk away. And I was not an easy person to be around. I was an angry elf and not cool to be around. I have my best friend who's, 12 years sober, and, she's a huge influence. And I, I would have to say, though, honestly, my biggest influence, and I know I talk about him a lot, would have to be my son. It would, hands down, would have to be. He is the rational one.
Yeah.
Truly, he is
Oh,
very rational. Um, and it also creates that mom guilt,
yeah.
because he's had to take care of me for so long, or had to, that, he just is. I look up to him as, it sounds so crazy because he's young, but I look up to him because he's exactly who I wish people were. He's kind, he's compassionate. He has a heart, but he's also got boundaries like nobody's business. So I admire that very much. Very much.
I love it. And what's one affirmation you wish you told yourself more often?
You are a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, shit, that was quick.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell everybody that I work with, every single one of my people that I work with, I tell them, remember, you're a fucking force to be reckoned with. And I don't think I've ever taken, myself up. I do now. And I do try to hype myself up with that. Um, but I wish that I had listened to myself. I wish that I had told myself that daily. Um, I saw this thing the other day. I heard this guy say, I want you to look in the mirror and say the first thing that you think about yourself. And then he said, I want you to get up and go say that to your child.
Oh.
Right? Yeah. And then he's like, let that sink in. And I'm like, I am. Damn. All right. Like, I know. But how, even if you don't have kids, say that to the person that you love the most. Say it to your dog, for crying out loud. I love my dog like my own cat, with my own kid, So, I mean, I try to tell myself, that I'm not what he said I am. I'm not what my addiction said that I am. I am a force to be reckoned with. We all are.
For sure.
Look at us.
For sure. I love the positive self-talk. I'm going to tell you, there's two things, Mandy, that will make me cry in a heartbeat. And it's my best friend singing, and it's me thinking about talking to my little self negatively. Like,
Yeah.
my inner child. Woo, see? Like,
Yeah.
it throws me off. So when I want to sit there in the mirror and bash myself like, you're a piece of shit, you're not worthy, I think immediately, and this is how I trained myself to talk to myself positively. It's like, okay, is that what I want to say to my little self?
Yeah.
I don't have kids, so I don't have the opportunity to say that. And yes, I tell them everything under the moon that's, kind, like I yell affirmations at them in a very aggressive tone. But it's thinking to myself, like, as a little kid, would I tell my little self that you're a piece of shit? Like, that's how I had to change that mindset. So positive self-talk is just the number one way to learn to love yourself.
It absolutely is. I mean, because if you've been through anything, anything like that, with addiction to addiction to addiction, it doesn't matter. You have to break that cycle. And the cycle that I don't know anybody that literally is addicted to something and looks in the mirror and says, oh my God, look at me. I am feeling fantastic. Let's go get some crack now. You look great, girl.
Right.
I mean, how many times have you heard people say, like, honestly, I accepted death. I wanted to die. I literally prayed that each time I overdosed that I would die, and that is so disturbing to hear, but that is the mind of an addict. That is the mind of an alcoholic. That is the mind of somebody that is addicted to something, whether it's a relationship, whatever, and they see no way out. And so death becomes such a great option because it's better than the life, if that's even what you want to call it, that they're living. At least that was my experience.
Yeah. And that's why we're happy to have that heartbeat.
Yes.
That heartbeat we're talking about, because, man. Okay, what's one thing you want to accomplish?
I would like to I want to be an advocate. I want to heal so freaking loud that people hear it and they say, like I did, I want what she has. And I want them to know that they're not alone. That's what I want to accomplish. I want to be an advocate for those that don't have a voice, because I did not have one for a long ass time. And now that I do, it's very painful, but I'll tell you what, it is so freeing and so beautiful. And throughout all the hurt and the pain, it's so worth it. I want to keep doing what I'm doing, and I want to accomplish that. That would be a dream.
I was going to say, you're already accomplishing it now. Like, almost 10 years sober. There, you're advocating for yourself. You're out of a relationship that was toxic. You're advocating for yourself. You're a recovery coach. Like, you are so accomplishing that right now. And I envy you. And a lot of people are growing from that and find success with all the work that you're doing. So definitely think you're already in the process. Oh no. I mean, like, you deserve to hear that. We've gone through so many fucking battles, so your voice is being heard. And
oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, now it's my turn. Thank you for saying that. I mean, honestly, I think that as long as one person, hears it, if somebody can resonate, because I was there, and I've been there many times, and I'll go there again, so yeah.
And for our last question, what's one piece of advice you would want to give to our listeners?
Oh, I would say you are never too far gone to come home. You are never too old, too rich, too young, too poor. You are never anything to come home, no matter what it is. I think that it is important to shout that from the rooftops, that if you are struggling, that there is hope. There is hope out there, and there is such a huge community that they're so loud, like so loud. We are loud, so loud that sometimes people don't like it, but we do not care, because we are coming after you in such a good way.
Right.
Right. Just come home. Just come home. That's all you got to do. Take one foot into the door and literally follow the lead. We'll show you how it's done. Just come home.
Right. Walk a little closer and you hear the dinner bell ringing. Follow that.
I love it. Yes.
Well, I really appreciate you, Mandy, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share your experience, strength, and hope, and your success, and your willingness to recover out loud. We need it, and I appreciate you doing that for us today.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed. I love you. I just think that you are so relatable, and just so. It was just such a flowing conversation, and I really enjoyed that. So thank you for letting me share. That it's very difficult when you are vulnerable, so you make that very easy, and I appreciate that very much. So I love you.
Mandy.
I feel like we are kind of bonded.
I feel like that comes with the community, right?
It does, which is connection.
That's right. Yeah, we bring it all around.
That's the cycle we want to be in.
That's right. All right, Mandy, we'll catch you later, okay, hon?
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.